My name's George Wylde and you're listening to The Journey Podcast, a show where we discuss how health and fitness has not only helped my own life, but how it's impacted the lives of others through diversity and how it's helped others gain success. Welcome, my name's George Wylde. I'm an online coach, I'm a personal trainer, I'm based in the Isle of Man, I'm an aspiring bodybuilder. And I want to bring you guys this podcast today. It's an opportunity for me to kind of delve down different people's experiences within the fitness industry, outside the fitness industry, and how fitness has helped them in life. So the reason I want to bring this to you is for that. And we're going to call this podcast The Journey. So welcome to episode 1 of The Journey. So now we go on to my very own journey. And I want to start from the very, very start. Look, I've been through many, many experiences. I've tried and trialed everything you can imagine, but I want to explain how that kind of that started and how that sort of happened. So from a very, very early age, growing up, I was exposed, not in a bad way. My upbringing was fantastic. I had a very blessed upbringing, but we were exposed to quite poor food habits from an off. I mean, in our family, again, a blessing, I suppose. Food was the fixer of all emotions. So if we were happy, we were fed. If we were sad, we were fed. If we were angry, we were fed. Whatever emotion seemed to come to light, the answer was always food. I mean, again, growing up, I had friends of mine who would eat things like, you know, the chicken dinners with broccolis and vegetables, etc., and they weren't allowed to leave the table until they had finished their greens. In my household, it wasn't. Again, we were very lucky and blessed not to do so. We were brought up, we had a lot of children in the house. It was the chicken dippers, smiley faces, potato waffles, all the things that you thoroughly enjoyed. Again, incredibly lucky as a child to have all this nice food. Growing up later in life, it's sort of come back to bite me in the ass a little bit in terms of my habits initially weren't all that good, and now they've been later in life learned. And again, I'm just going to explain as to how and why that happened. So when I was younger, I kind of maintained a shape. I was incredibly active. I was one of those who played football 6-7 times a week, played golf. At this point, and I definitely don't try and push this, or I out-trained a bad diet. And that's not something I sell because it can't be done. But as a kid with high metabolism, lots of activity, I did. But again, I kind of got away with it, especially with a lack of understanding, a lack of knowledge as a child as you do. I definitely believe this is something that should be brought into schools. I was taught how to do algebra, yet I wasn't taught how to maintain my weight or eat healthily, and like I say, by that point you kind of got away with running around lots and eating lots of food. So those habits were instilled from an early age, but again, with a lack of knowledge, I just pursued and got away with it for an a long time. As we get older, I sort of hit the age, I stopped being as active as you do. I hit the age of 18. I endured a couple of injuries through football, so I started to then play golf. Again, the way I'm natured, I was all in, played an awful lot of golf. Okay, the activity was high. I came to the sort of age of 18, I started working in a golf shop. At that point, I became a lot more sedentary. I was sat, again, but then these habits, as you can imagine, in the background were still chipping away, which then seeing me sat for the majority of the day, my weight then started to increase. Me unknowingly didn't realize that this was an issue, was unsure why. And again, at the age of 18, we tend to find alcohol. I started drinking. I've never been a huge drinker, but I was. That, as we know, everything we kind of put in starts to incur calories, and my movement was less and less and less. So over time, I started to sort of gain more weight. I was teased at a point, but I didn't think anything of it. I didn't really understand why, and I definitely didn't know how to undo what I was doing. So I continued on, sadly, getting heavier and heavier, getting to a point where I noticed and I became unhappier and unhappier. I became uncomfortable in the clothes I was wearing. I became uncomfortable kind of attending social events. I became a little bit embarrassed, especially when names were being called. And I had no understanding as to how or why this was happening. I had friends around me that were doing the same, and their bodies didn't seem to react or respond the same. What I want to do, that's my brief introduction as to where I was at, and then I kind of want to discuss how I started fitness. So as you can imagine, that initial start point kind of left me in quite a poor starting position. I was a little bit overweight, very, very unsure of nutrition, and with plenty of bad habits. So as humans, human nature as we do, I was incredibly impatient, so I tried everything I wanted to, thick and fast, to try and lose the weight. I did things like, so when I first started, when I was a kid, I ate pizza daily pretty much, so I didn't really enjoy real food. I would eat chicken if it had batter on, I'd eat fish if it had batter on, so I was really limited to the type of foods that I could eat that were deemed healthy. So I literally started my fitness journey eating pasta and pepperoni. pepperoni sticks, chopped up in pasta. That's all I knew. Now on reflection, knowing that's just a lot of carbohydrates and plenty of fat. So, but that's what I thought was deemed to be good. I'd started having a look online. People were eating, bodybuilders were eating pasta, etc., etc. So from there, that wasn't working. Understandably, now I know why. So I sort of started to rush things. I was getting frustrated. I wasn't seeing results. I felt like I was putting the work in. I was sacrificing and not seeing the results. So then I went down the route of things like the Cambridge diet. For those of you who don't know, Cambridge diet is incredibly effective. It's incredibly unsustainable. It's 3 milkshakes a day, a very, very low calorie intake. So for sure it works. But imagine trying to stay on sort of 3 milkshakes a day when you're still trying to play football, you're still trying to play golf. I mean, that's probably the start of where I knew I had willpower, because I stuck this kind of thing out for a very, very long time. So I kind of maybe hit, for me being a child, 17-ish stone. I then flew into that. I again showed my willpower, showed my sort of determination, ended up around 11. But look, what I did was it masked any habits. I went from terrible habits to 3 milkshakes a day. Perfect. It did the job. I got to the point where I deemed myself skinny, ready to go. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'll go back to what I was doing before. That seen me then kind of add weight, to be honest, and more. So I ended up getting heavier than I was when I started, because my body was so responsive to the food that I put in. I almost then went on like a crazy binge because I'd starved myself for so long. So this obviously then caused me to be unhappy again. I was back to square one. So then I tried things that were maybe, I didn't want to do the shakes again. It was incredibly difficult. It was hard, and I didn't want to have to sustain it again. So I went down the route of the Atkins diet. And carbs worked. And again, it does, but it is not sustainable for real day life, I don't believe. So then I literally lived on, again, I didn't like food, so I lived on chicken wings and pepperoni, and it was actually a really, I suppose, a nice diet, other than I had zero energy. I was still trying to maintain a good level of golf. I played golf to a nice high level, but unfortunately my want for getting into shape took over. It impacted my ability to be able to practice. I had no energy and concentration, and it just started to take over. So sadly that sort of fizzled out, and from there I got myself into the gym. I wanted to get into shape. I read men's health magazines. I wanted to look like these guys. I felt like I was putting the work in, and I deserved to look like these people. So what did I do? I walked into the gym, as we all do, incredibly vulnerable. I say this to anyone who then comes to me today. If you walk into a gym, it's like me walking into your job for the very first day. It's the complete unknown, and it's incredibly common and understandable to feel uncomfortable and overwhelmed. So like most of us do, I stumbled over to the treadmills. I knew how to turn them on, so I kind of stuck and went from there. I spent a lot of time, again, massively under eating. I was still 0 carbs for a very long time, lots of running, seeing the other guys in the gym getting into better shape. I felt like I was suffering more than them. I felt like I deserved to look better than them. And again, I was just going, to be honest, I was going nowhere very, very fast, is the term I like to use, and it happens a lot when people get things wrong. So I then, this again just kind of ended poorly. I wasn't enjoying it. I sort of just deemed fitness as wrong. Not for me, but only because I was getting it wrong. I then started training in a gym with a good friend of mine. I was still playing golf at the time. A very good friend of mine was actually a bodybuilder, who then took me under his wing very kindly and helped me understand what I was doing. Look, so he again was slightly, in terms of, I'm not playing the genetic card, slightly better than me. He'd also done it for a lot longer, so there's no luck involved. He'd done it for a lot longer than I had. So he was then just eat your foods, eat your chickens, eat your rice. He did explain to me, and he taught me an awful lot. I was very, very blessed. I think a lot of people these days that I train myself don't understand the level of intensity that is needed to be trained. I, from a very, very early age, or my first teacher taught me how to train properly. I was very, very lucky. He taught me the levels of consistency and almost craziness you needed to be at to sustain or progress at an absolute optimal rate. I was very, very lucky in the way that I was taught. My very first teacher was very, very, very useful and a very good friend. Like I say, he taught me the ways of the gym, how to train properly, which again is something I think a lot of people miss out on, and how to kind of live a very strict and very sort of structured life, and how to make progress. From there, we kind of, like I say, still playing golf, still doing bits. We then started training in a friend's garage, and I remember it was great. We loved it. It was the sort of summer holidays at this point for me. When I was back in the day when we had those, we were training in the garage. We were still playing golf. We had all the equipment. It was great. We were training super hard. I was eating my chicken and rice. I was living the dream, being a bodybuilder. It was great. I was making progress for sure. Maybe not. Obviously, at that point, I was never tracking. I wasn't taking before and after pictures. I wasn't tracking my weight. I was just kind of going off, looking down. And as we all do, you're not going to see results thick and fast looking down. It's important to track your data and make sure that we do take a step back and see how well we are doing. So I didn't, and I felt like I wasn't progressing quick enough, but that's possibly now later in life down to immaturity and impatience. I mean, and unfortunately we all are. I still am to this day, maybe as immature probably, but definitely we're all impatient. We all want results thicker and faster. In those days we used to, every sort of Friday, Saturday, the boys would get their pizzas in, they'd be drinking cans of Coke, they'd be doing this, and I would stick to my chicken and rice as always, because I knew what I wanted to do later in life. And this is something I got criticised on a lot at that point, because I'd always said, I want to be a bodybuilder. And at this point, I can assure you, I did not look like a bodybuilder. I went through that as well when I used to go out when we were a bit older, when we were drinking, and I stuck to I didn't drink. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I would leave nights out. I would go down to the local chicken shop and ask for chicken breast only. I'd then come back to the nightclub sober, and again people used to mock me, because honestly, again, at this point I did not look like I'd even been to the gym. So, but I knew I had a vision, and this was from very early on, so 21, 22. I'm a bit older than that now. I knew what needed to be done, and I had the vision in sight. So in hindsight, I'm glad I did it. At the time, like I say, it must have looked ridiculous, me telling people that I was going to be a bodybuilder, and I like I said, didn't fit the part, sadly. So kind of my next point of call was then I went to a bank to work. I left the golf shop. By that point, I had really not been kind of given my life or enough attention to the golf. I started to struggle. I wasn't enjoying it because I was so focused now on my new passion, which was the gym. So with that, then I had to fund it. So I had friends within the golf industry who worked in banks. I went and worked in a bank. I hated it, but it funded my lifestyle, funded my gym membership, and it funded my chicken. It funded my protein shake, the weight gainers we used to take when we were kids. It funded all the above. As years go on, did a couple of years there, funded my life. That was fine. It got to a point where my passion grew so high for the gym that I was adamant I wanted to bring this on. I'll take this on as a career. So I remember going into a meeting with my boss, and I said, look, can I take 8 weeks off to go away and do my PT course? I want to come back, and I'm just going to PT on the side. And they unfortunately said I couldn't. I said, no problem, here's my notice, I'm going. So took quite a big leap into the real world to do something I wanted to do. Again, took out a loan to have to go do my PT exams. Didn't have a job, didn't have anything. It was just a big jump. I was keen. I knew I wanted to work, so that's what I did. Went away. Went to Glasgow for 8 weeks to study my PT. Come home, which was great. So that was an eye opener in itself for someone who'd lived at home and eaten smiley faces his whole life, to go away and to the big UK on my own and study for something else, which was great. Come home, got myself a job in a gym, which was fantastic. Again, started to take things a bit more seriously, which was cool. Someone asked me one day, what are you doing this for? I said, I don't know. I think I was scared of being what I was when I was unhappy. I think it was probably the start point. And they said, well, have you ever thought about competing? I said, no. I said, as a child who was heavily overweight, who was picked on, teased on, all the above, to then go and stand on a stage in front of thousands of people with my top off was the absolute idea of hell, and never ever crossed my mind. And the guy I was chatting with actually was just down there. I remember the conversation we had now, and cause I remember going home laughing and thinking how bizarre, and it was literally down the road from where I am today. And do you know what I thought? Do you know what, I'm going to go for it. He obviously had belief in me, and I'm so grateful for his advice, his inspiration, his belief is what I'm trying to say, I suppose, into what I did. I'm very grateful today in his role that he's played in my journey. Without him, I wouldn't be where I am, for sure, and I'm forever grateful. So yes, that was it. Did show number one. I remember I must have been a whole of 70 kilos at that time. I'm a lot heavier now than I was. I remember walking around thinking I was the bee's knees, thinking I was massive. I went to Body Power 2015, which was a nice big show, big expo. Had my eyes open to the world of fitness at that point. Like I say, I thought I was the bee's knees, and I come dead last. Wonderful. So, did it put me off? No, it actually didn't. It grew a fire in my belly. That's probably, I think for a lot of people, they need that. For me, I did. The minute I got off stage, I was back at it. Actually, within that period, I was a little bit unsure of what to do next. You're hyper focused towards the show. You finish, you're hungry. At this point, I was incredibly hungry, and I binged quite heavily. I gained an awful lot of weight, and that was again that was a massive learning curve for me. So I didn't know what to do. I knew that doing a show had worked in terms of it had created focus. So that's all I knew. That's all I knew. I just jumped back in and I did another show. I didn't know any different. But by this point, I was so emotionally drained from the prep. Anyone who's competed for the very first time, it's often the most difficult, especially being a heavy child, a heavy teenager. I had an awful lot of stubborn belly fat to get rid of. I had to dig very, very deep into the trenches to remove that from my very first prep. I then obviously came out. I went through an emotional time where I'd gained all this weight. I felt unhappy, but I was this person that once was before, this lean, confident person to being very, very quickly not. And so the prep itself was very, very difficult. I wasn't mentally prepared for it. The show itself was actually based in America. I say on that prep it was difficult. I actually, for the very, very first time, I found myself nipping away from the diet, so we say, over an evening I'd maybe find myself, it was never ever bad food. It was a couple more rice cakes, it was a bit more yogurt. I didn't have a massive knowledge. I thought, well, I'm eating healthy food, this must be okay, especially from my background of the foods I had eaten in the past. I thought this must be okay. Not understanding that I was trying to get into a deficit, not understanding that I was trying to reduce body fat. I was thinking, I'm eating healthy, this is fine, I'm doing lots of cardio, don't worry about it. So anyway, we got there, we got to the States, which was great, got there, and I got backstage. So the closer I got to prep, the more depleted I was getting, the more I kind of was picking at the rice cakes, picking at the yogurt. I stood backstage and I was an absolute mess. I looked a mess. And I think the people around me were being nice to say I looked okay. I didn't. And I remember that time I sat backstage and I cried. I didn't want to, for me, the bit, again, going back to my biggest fear in life of stepping on stage in front of thousands of people. I didn't know these people. It's a different country, but it doesn't matter. It was the biggest fear of my life was standing in front of people with my stomach out. To this day, I'm still funny around swimming pools and holidays, but imagine being highlighted literally with stage lights, literally with everyone looking at you. You get introduced on the stage and I'm thinking, here he is, here's Fatty, welcome me. And I remember crying backstage, and I remember crying afterwards as well. And that from that day onwards, that was 2016, I told myself I'm never, ever, ever going to cheat on my diet ever again. And I haven't. 2022, I think we are now. To this day, I've never missed a grain of rice when I'm on prep. I've never, ever missed a beat. And that was all from a very, very tough lesson that I was taught. Anyway, so finished my show in America. I was obviously an emotional mess from what had happened. And we were out there we'd actually gone with me and a friend of mine for the 90-day Esther. We'd taken a visa to go and be there for the full 3 months. So after that, obviously emotionally getting there, I felt a mess. A friend of mine that I went with, actually a really good friend of mine, is now, he went to meet a girl. They're now married. So I was left on my own quite a lot with my own thoughts, with American food. It was a disaster waiting to happen. So I spent a lot of time, and to give you my due, if you can, I'd prep all my food in the morning. I would get an Uber to the mall. I'd walk around the mall looking at shops with my cold fish and rice in my bag with all good intentions. And yeah, sadly, weeks and weeks and weeks of, eating boxes of cereal. American food's different, American candies, etc., etc. I spent a lot of time on my own getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And believe it or not, I think I put on a good solid 2 stone, to the point where, again, I got myself very upset and I came home. And this is just another lesson learned. So when people look at me now and think, oh, he knows it all, I've been through all sorts, and this anecdotal experience is what I can now bring on and give to my clients. And that's why I think it's incredibly important. I think you can read all the textbooks you want, but I think by experience it, I'm not saying go out there and stuff your face and then diet yourself and do whatever, but I believe to be lucky that I've been through these experiences, because I can then empathize with the clients that I have now as to the experiences that I've had. So come home a mess. I'd quit my job to go to America. I come home fat. I hate the term fat, but I was overweight and no job. Wonderful. So the perfect start point. But you crack on, you move on, you do what you do. I actually went back to an office to work. So again, I was like, I hated my job, hated how I looked. But training was therapy. Get myself back in. I felt more comfortable back at home, back in my routine. I knew that's where my structure was based, and I knew I felt comfort within my routine back at home. I then actually got offered a job back at the gym that I'd upped and left, and they shouldn't have. I left recklessly, thought I was taking over the world and going to America to be something I wasn't, but I'm very, very grateful they brought me back on. So I've then worked there for years and years and years and years. I got myself established over here as a one-to-one trainer. I take great passion around the training, the aspect of training and training execution, and that's something I'm hugely passionate about. So I loved, and I do love, my one-to-one working with clients. Like I say, they probably just want me to train them, but I do take great great pride in my ability to kind of help people train. And I love showing people how to train. Again, I think I was blessed to be shown how to train properly, and people these days, or people in general, haven't often felt it. So I used to love that, maybe sadistical. I maybe enjoy torturing people, maybe, I don't know, but I like to kind of help in the way that I do. So I did that for years and years and years. Along the way, I then offered my experience up to that date with regards to diet plans. I knew 1 hour a week wasn't enough in the gym. I knew 2 hours a week wasn't enough in the gym solely. So to then be able to help them on the outside of the gym was a really useful tool. So I started my, we'll call it online coaching process for free. I actually just used to do diet plans for the pleasure of wanting to get people results. So I used to do them for free on the sideline. I prepped a few people for over however many weeks. We'd set goals. I did all the things that an online coach does, but like I said, I did it out of love and did it out of passion, and it was fun. But whilst doing that, people witnessed me doing it. People saw the results, and that kind of started to build a name in the background for what I was doing there, which, like I say, I was doing it out of kindness, but it actually helped me massively in the interim. So from there, training helped a few people. The reason I kind of got into online coaching was funny really to me. My girlfriend was is a trainee accountant. She was studying all the time. At this point, I was still absolutely unjustifiably a full-time bodybuilder. That was my justification to myself. We were so she'd be studying for hours and hours of an evening. I was sat with my feet up watching Netflix, claiming that I was resting. I'm resting. I'm a bodybuilder. I need to rest. But it got to a point where I'd come downstairs and say, "Oh, I'm a bit tired," and I would just get the daggers, understandably. And I started to feel guilty and lazy for the time I was wasting, while someone else was progressing their life, further in their life, becoming bettering themselves, so we say. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this a bit more seriously. I've got this time. You're not speaking to me, you're studying, that's cool. I'm bored of Netflix. I'm going to start to help more people and progress myself, better myself. So I started online coaching properly from that point. So I took on a few clients I worked with, and then we set ourselves a photo shoot challenge. So I took on maybe 6 to 8 clients, I think it was, and we set, I think it was 12, 16 weeks, I can't remember off the top of my head, and we ran a photo shoot. I loved every minute of it. I was actually prepping for a show myself at the time, and I just rode off the waves of these people and the inspiration of their sort of drive and their enjoyment of the journey. And that is, for me, honestly, it's an incredibly selfless job for me. I take great satisfaction from seeing people's progress, I suppose. I don't know, selfish really. It's a selfish job, sorry, is what I should say, because I take great pleasure and pride from them. But I enjoyed every single minute of it. I rode their wave, they rode my wave, and it was well timed, and I enjoyed every minute. So from there, we ran through the results we got with the guys were insane. Me being me got so excited with the results in terms of, I didn't charge very much because I just enjoyed doing it. I charged a little bit for my time, but I then bought them all goodie bags, t-shirts, the works. Any money I probably made, I gave it all back, but it was just out of excitement and I enjoyed it. And again, it wasn't for that at the time, it was to just kind of get into it. But as a byproduct of all that work that I put in, whether it was paid for or not, that then gave me the launch pad, it gave me the result pad, it gave me a package of results. That was my launch pad then into further in my career as an online coach. I knew I loved it. I knew I loved helping people, and I'd established myself with the results I'd got. So that started to build up. In the background, I was still doing my training, still doing whatever. I was still working in the gym, guys. I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and do my cardio at 4. I was working 6 till 2 to, personal training. I was training myself. I was answering messages. I was doing all the above. So over the time, I've been able to I've learned what it feels like to be busy, and this is why, again, all the experiences that I've had and being busy and all the excuses that I could have had, I've used, and that's why, again, I think from start to finish, and I'm going to digress, it's what I do. I'm lucky to have stayed on track from here to now because it's bullet pointed down, but all the experiences that I've had have been incredibly useful for me to be able to empathize with clients, understand clients, but then also on the flip side of that, I believe I am in the position to then call someone out if they're being lazy. I have done all the things right, wrong. I've worked crazy hours. I've underslept. I'm not saying that's right, but I've done all these things. And so I feel like I've lived both ends of the spectrum. So in that way, I think clients then can bounce off that and understand that. So I'm more than empathetic with clients. If there's been a serious issue or there is an issue, I get, but I can also call someone out when they're not putting their work in. So then from there, like I say, started to build up more clients, started to enjoy it more and more. We got more results, and that just all started to take off. And like I said, in the background, I'm still training, still doing my own bit. I've still got my own goals to do so. So that's sort of 5 years on the gym floor, 5 years building a name, 5 years working with people, like I say, not sleeping, doing whatever, just living and loving life, to be honest, thriving off the buzz. Up until this year, I've actually left. It was the first time I left the gym, set up on my own, started online coaching full time, which was a big move for me. I love the gym that I was based in. The people I work with are like a family to me. I felt terrible actually leaving the gym, to be honest. But in terms of my career, I needed to be a little bit selfish. It was a difficult decision. I've got a great relationship with them. I still train there. They're amazing people. And all my clients are kind of based from there too. So I go in, I'll speak to everyone that's in there. It's cool. And but yeah, to be selfish for once, I tried to be, was to then venture out on my own. And that has just allowed me to now give more time to people. And it's, like I say, I've not gone left and doing nothing. It's giving me more time to help more people. And that's, again, something that I love doing. And that was always my argument with one-to-one training. I loved it, and I do. I have great passion in helping people on the gym floor. And I will never come away from that fully. But within that 1 hour, I was restricted to helping one person. So what's been a pleasure is to come away and be able to kind of expand my giving, expand my help, which is wonderful. So that's where we are today. So we're still trying to grow and expand the online world, to trying to work with more people, looking to aim to bring more coaches on. Again, just to help more people, looking to bring people in to help on the gym floor, a role that I can't play. I wish I could have 10 of me. Yes, the world's not ready for that, I'm sure, but it would be... I'm working with people, and I'm lucky enough to be able to kind of looking to bring people on who are of a very similar mindset to me and morals. And a lot of what I do is about morals. I don't care what you've got in terms of qualifications. It's about how you treat people and have the same passion for helping as I have done. Mine comes from my own experiences. I know, and I say this to everyone, I've been both ends of the spectrum. I've been overweight, I've been on stage and in show condition. It doesn't make me a better person, but it's made me feel much, much better in that role, whether that be to confidence of feeling or looking, no one looks good or bad, but looking better, or is it the sense of fulfillment that I've had from completing a journey? I'm not too sure, either or. It's empowering to take over your own journey, and I know how difficult preps can be, and that could be a prep for anything, but I want to give people the experience that I've felt and give people the opportunity to then, push on in life in other ways. So like I say, I harp on for sure, but that's the kind of the vision for where I want the brand to go. I just want to help as many people as possible, and is all just group together on the way and just vibe off each other. It's important. So kind of that's where we are today, and this is where I am today. And like I say, there's a roundup for kind of that's my journey. But I'm really interested just to break down others. Look, I've had a lot of goods and bads, highs and lows. All of them are now ending in a high. I don't believe in tripping over things that are behind you. They've all been lessons learned, and that's something I've learned over the years. All the above, on paper, some of the stuff was bad and it was upsetting and it was hard to do, but look at where I am now. It's built me a portfolio of experience that I can now share. So someone has to do it. I'll be the guinea pig and I'll pass that knowledge on. I've wasted years of my life getting things wrong. So again, this is something I always try and plug, is that I hate wasting time. I've wasted so much time in my life and I hate wasting time. So for me to be able to give people the opportunity to not waste the time that I have is a blessing, really, and take out the guesswork of the things that I never had. And if I can go back in time, that's the first thing I'd have done, is gone to someone in the know. But as we all do, as we're young, whippersnappers, we all know better than everyone else, and I never did. So like I say, this is where we are today. This is the finish. I'll stop talking about my story now, because I'll talk about myself forever. So that's why I'm looking forward to bringing on others in many different roles, many different experiences. It's not only the bodybuilding that is what I'm interested in and what my journey, but also kind of how fitness has helped others, successful business people, how fitness has helped with that. Fitness isn't just about fitness. It's not just an aesthetic kind of goal. It helps in many other ways. And I'm really excited to kind of delve down how people manage their fitness with different, look, I'm lucky at the moment. I can dictate my own life with the way I work, but people have jobs, people have kids, people have the opportunity to use excuses. So I'm interested to kind of figure out how they've managed their obstacles. These have been mine, and I've explained mine today, but how they've managed their obstacles. And if I can dig into them, bring out all the kind of good that they've achieved, and hopefully you guys will take something away, whether it's inspiration or just tools to then factor into your own. But guys, I'd be interested for you to drop any comments below, anything in particular you'd like us to cover, or any particular guest that you'd like me to kind of root down or bring on. But that's me. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell. The more that we can do that, the more I can kind of bring these things to you and bring on, like I say, I've got scope now to bring on lots and lots of exciting and experienced guests as well. So lastly, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll speak to you soon.